What's up, DK Nation? Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about my top 5 favorite controllers of all time. These are controllers that have a special place in my heart, and this was like something that I was like thinking about with a conversation with the girlfriend, and I'm like, what are my favorite controllers? What are the controllers that hold that place in my heart? And it also stemmed from a recent number 1 favorite controller. We'll get to that in a minute. It stemmed the question, what other controllers do I love? So here we go, folks, the top 5 controllers. Just note, please, that this is my opinion. If you guys want to do your own top 5 favorite controllers, please, by all means, do your own video. But this is my opinion, please respect it. So without further ado, let's begin. Running out at number 5 is a controller I did not grow up with, and I didn't get a chance to play with it until my adult years. But I had to say, the SNES controller is just so good. This is a sequel to a controller done right, because we had the NES controller. That was the first Nintendo console with its controller, and that's gonna be on another list that people might not like, but you know, it is what it is. Before it was a simplistic controller. So when the SNES came out, it was a game changer for Nintendo. They added so many more buttons. They added the first shoulder buttons on a controller, and it was just the feel of the controller is so satisfying to play, even to this day. It's only so low because, again, I did not grow up with it. I know a lot of people, this would probably be their number 1 controller, but that's, you know, playing on nostalgia. I don't have the nostalgia for it. I did not start playing the SNES until my adult years because I was a PlayStation kid. That was the first console I grew up with. But I am happy to have gotten a chance to at least try out the SNES in my adult years now, than rather than not try it at all. So yeah, the SNES, number 5. With number 4, it's gonna be a controversial one, but please, again, this is my top 5. Please respect it. You guys are gonna be like, Dream Killer, why? Why do you like this controller? And that is the Wii U Controller. Look, I know the Wii U has gotten a lot of flack over the years. It's definitely not Nintendo's best console ever. It has short lifespan and just did not have the support for it. But I cannot deny how awesome this controller is. A lot of people don't like this controller because it's so big and so bulky, but that's why I love it. When I got my hands on it, playing it for the first time, it just felt right for me. Everything is not, it doesn't feel cheap. Everything, like the triggers, the shoulder buttons, all the buttons on here, they don't feel cheap. Like, it has heft to it. It's got quality to it. And people gotta keep in mind, this is the predecessor to the Switch. This was what was the groundwork for what we would have in the Switch. So without this controller, we probably wouldn't have the Switch. And like I said, I like using it. This one unfortunately stopped working for me, so I need to get a new one. But I love this. I know a lot of people hate it, but I'm just a weird person. I like the Wii U controller. It has quality to it. Nintendo did not cheap out on this. I'm really happy they didn't. Number 3 is another big one that people are gonna be like, why is this so high up on the list? I don't understand this. And for me, that's the GameCube controller. A lot of people don't like this controller a lot, solely for the fact it's so small and it's not good for people with big hands, and some people don't like how it feels, and you know, the little C button as camera is bad. But I don't know, it's just something that hits me mentally about this controller that just fits me. I actually like the triggers. I like the little clickiness of it. Yeah, the C button for the camera, it wasn't the best, and definitely the D-pad is something to, you know, we could have had a lot more, but for what we got and what we have now, I actually really like it. And keep in mind, people still consider this the controller to use for Smash Brothers. Every time a new Smash Brothers comes out, people are like, are we getting this controller as a controller to use? And that just proves the test of time, especially for Smash players, the test of time of this controller, when people are still asking, are we using this controller? I love it. I know a lot of people don't like it, but for me, it definitely deserves its number 3 spot. And a special shout out to the Hori controller. that was basically used for the Game Boy function on the GameCube. This was definitely a game changer. And also shout out too for the Wii controller. I don't have that on me right now, but definitely the Wii controller was the predecessor to all wireless controllers that we have right now. And yeah, these controllers are not cheap, neither is the Wii, but they are definitely worth it if you can find them out in the wild. Especially if you manage to find them cheap, but that's pretty much impossible. Next off, in number 2, is a controller that I loved day one, and that is the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller. Nintendo did a really good job with this controller. They thought of everything for this controller, from its heft to its quality with its buttons. Like, I don't know how to say it properly. It just works so well, and kudos to Nintendo for putting forth effort with this controller. They didn't have to, because it's like we had the Joy-Cons, and they could have just cheaped out with a third-party, a third supported controller or whatnot. But no, they didn't. This thing has the perfect heft and quality to it, and I have the Sword and Shield one. This is made by a third party. It's not as good as the first party made Nintendo Pro controller, but it gets the job done. It has the side buttons here. What an awesome controller. Nintendo did really good on this one. There's not much I can say. If you have one, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, if you don't own a Pro controller for the Switch, I don't know what to say. You should really pick one up. They're not really expensive compared to other modern controllers, but honestly, again, it gets the job done. What can I say? Alright, before we get to number 1, we're gonna do some quick honorable mentions, and it's just one for one particular controller, and that was the controller I grew up on my first console, which is the PlayStation 1, and the PlayStation 1 DualShock controller. I never played the PlayStation 1 in its early set with the original PlayStation controller without the joysticks. I can't imagine playing on the controller, because when the first DualShock came out, it was a game changer for controllers, and the reason why we have our controllers with these joysticks now. Especially with the Rumble was such a big deal back in the day. The comfort feel of the PlayStation 1 controller. Every time I find one at a retro game store and I hold it like it was the first time I ever held that controller at the time. It gives me such big nostalgia, and I love it. So big shout out, a big honorable mention to the PlayStation 1 controller. Finally, at number 1, the reason this video was even made to begin with, and what sparked my interest in wanting to talk about my favorite controllers, was this recent addition, the PlayStation 5 controller. What a big leap in PlayStation controllers, because here's the thing you gotta understand. We had the PlayStation 1, DualShock 1, which was revolutionary. We had the PlayStation 2, which was just doing the same thing as the PlayStation 1. The PS3 was a little bit too experimental, and it's gonna be on another not so nice list I'll be talking about. And then the PlayStation 4 changed some stuff with the inclusion of the touchpad, which they also included on the PS5 controller. The touchpad was not used that much, unfortunately. It was a very gimmicky addition. And then you had the triggers for the PlayStation 4 were not that great. I didn't like them, but for the most part, the PlayStation 4 controller was pretty good. But then the PlayStation 5 came. And say what you will about the console, everyone has their complaints about the way the console looked. Everyone can agree, Sony did really good on this controller. Everything from its heft, it's perfectly hefty, not too heavy, not too light. From its haptic feedback, which, God, the haptic feedback still blows my mind. And the adaptive triggers, which is so weird. I'm still trying to get used to it to this day. When I was playing games like Spider-Man with the resistance in the triggers, it was so weird. And especially playing Astro's Playroom, which was a big demo for the PlayStation 5 controller. It was so trippy and took me a while to get used to, but when I did, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And finally, they, PlayStation finally gave us decent triggers. It's still not as good as Xbox's triggers on their controller, but for the most part, I'm happy at least Sony tried to fix what they did with the PlayStation 4's triggers, because the PlayStation 4's triggers were not that good at all. So yeah, and just look at it. This thing looks so sleek, so revolutionary, and I hope that Sony continues with this model down the line. It may change up a few things, but for the most part, I'm very satisfied, and this is definitely my #1 favorite controller of all time. Guys, that is it for this video. Comment down below, what is your favorite controller of all time? Thank you for sticking around for this video, and I appreciate and love every single one of you guys. And until next time, gamers, keep on rocking.